So this is going to be a video on the buffing. People struggle with it. I'm tired of watching people using auto clickers and what is it called? The counting method. So if you have a curse that's between 7 and 5, I'm not going to do 8s. 7 plus, this is 6.8 plus, and this is 5.9 plus. These are the two methods you can do that don't involve counting. So Leafa's going to be the example for the lower end, despite her being despite this method working for both. Like if you have an Orwin with the lower end, you can still do this. And then Orwin's going to represent if your cooldown is on the higher end. Alright, go ahead and load it up. An easy one. I'm going to have my buddy over here, Gamma, to put down his units so that I can focus on showing you guys, again, how to buff. I need more buffers in the community that don't do these weird strats or counting or whatever. And also, if you don't have Leaf already, and you take this game seriously, you need to get one. Be better. Okay, the first thing to keep a mental note of is the cost. If you're doing the costlier method, so we'll do the low-end curse first. This doesn't cost any additional money. This is what you do if your curse is lower. So what you place down 3, and then after you place down 3, you buff, and then slowly pull out from your inventory, and then buff with a unit that already has a buff on it. Do not press numbers to place. Just slowly pull it out of your inventory and place it. Not too long, just long enough where it's a few seconds, like a second goes by, kind of. You'll get the rhythm of it, but it will only work if your cooldowns are faster. Make sure they're all on auto, and then buff with the units that end. So as they end, buff with the newest one, and they'll already be in full cycle. So if you, just to recap, it was place 3, buff with any of these 3, but it's better to do it with the one that's isolated. So when you slowly place the newest one, you buff with the ones that received the buff before. So just to show you again, because I kind of like talked over myself. Place 3, auto buff, slowly place, and then with the 50%, immediately 100%. And because I was like slowly showing you guys this, I'm going to do it one more time so that it's perfect. Once you get the rhythm of it going like this, you'll never have to pay attention to lower curse cooldowns. And I'll just let this cycle go through. And then we're going to show Orwin, which is the higher curse. This is if your curse is closer to 7. And this is a selling method, which I'll go into with money in a second. And as soon as it trickles over, as soon as it ends, and then when the 7 ends. Just like that. Every single time. You can spread them, whatever. Just make sure it's in that order. Now, if you have a higher curse, you want to actually place 3, just like the Leafas, but auto buff with Orwin, or whatever it is, auto buff with it, but immediately sell it and hit the number to place again. So just, because that was a little fast, you place 3 just like the Leafas. Or just like the other, the quicker buff method. Buff with the odd one out and sell it as fast as possible. And then with numbers, place. And then buff with the ones that have a buff on it already. Then from there, this method will actually have more buffing involved. So you can't forget that you're actually going to have to buff a 3rd time. Rather than the 4 times with the Leafa, or with the shorter end buff. So with one of the higher numbers again, so we'll go with the 56 here, you buff immediately. Like, that might have been slow, but you have to do it as soon as it goes away. Like, even me pausing right there could have messed with it. But you got to be so fast. Which is kind of nicer about the longer cooldown one, is you have to do it immediately. So it's done faster. You auto buff with the last one, and then you're set for the end of the game. No counting. There was no counting. I was talking. And done. They're all done, and that's the rest of the game. So we have a little time. So I'm going to show the Orwin one again. This is if you have a higher buff. Place 3. Buff with it. Sell. Place. Buff. To do the hyper placing you saw there, you got to hit the numbers on your keyboard. So Orwin was 6 for me. So it was place down 3. Auto or buff 6 place like 6 click fast, and then as soon as it ends, immediately as it ends, you have to pay attention to it. If you get really good, you can squeeze maybe like a farm or something like that involved, but you have to do it like this. And I see so many tournament videos where they'll place a buff and then like a few seconds goes by or something like that, depending on curse. And they'll just leave the buff alone in place. It almost seems like they have their own weird counting method. This one works without fail. Unless you screw up. If you make mistakes, then it fails. But you don't have to count. I was able to talk over the whole thing, and it'll just run itself now. And they'll just stay like that. So high or low, you don't need to count. Like, these two methods work for either the others. Now, if you're in the middle, you may have to go either slower with the Leafa method you saw earlier, or you can't go any faster with the Orwins. So you'll just have to play slower with Leafa.